Hello and welcome to Next 2.0 on WQLN PBS NPR. Next is produced by the Public's Voice Media. I am your host, Marcus Atkinson, with guest host Chuck Cammarata. If you want to know more about the show, you can go to Facebook and like the page. You can follow us on Instagram at Next 2.0 Erie. There you can keep up with upcoming show promos, events, and clips about what's next for our community and our democracy. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, I happen to be one of the men of ESR, which sometimes stands for Eastside Renegades, other times Eastside Renaissance.
Absolutely.
And so in that respect, obviously I've introduced Chuck. Chuck will be riding as my wingman on this show, and he will, do a little interviewing himself, seeing that I'm a part of the Eastside Renaissance team. But to my left, I have a young man by the name of Paul Hamilton. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And I've got local celebrity Matthew Harris. Matt, welcome to the show.
Celebrity. Thank you so much.
Between all of our characters, Strong Vincent basketball and wine on the lake.
Got to bring that up.
He is the man about town. Paul is the guy that we want to focus on today because for the first time, the Eastside Renaissance has an executive director. They are so used to seeing myself and Matt and Bishop Brock, who is not here with us today, especially Matt and Bishop. I have played more of a backseat in this Eastside Renaissance season. I am enjoying that. Mm-hmm. I'm enjoying being more of the strategic member of that founding group. And certainly, Matt and Bishop have been out front of this thing on a lot of angles. You reach a point that you just decide, we need to share the work. Before we bring Paul in, mm-hmm. Matt, give the listener an example in terms of the mindset behind needing to hire somebody to take this ball and run with it.
Yeah, I guess the portfolio has just been growing over the years, and the work is continuing regarding the Eastside Renaissance's vision and our mission of residential and commercial property revitalization, improving the lives of families, financial literacy, financial education, and then also insurance awareness and education regarding business, life, and home insurance realms. And so with all those things taking shape over the last several years, it's become a lot. And, Marcus and myself have basically been running the day-to-day, and the time of bringing on an executive director couldn't be any better. And so having Paul on board, educating him, he's a smart young man, and we know we have the right guy for this position. And so he's transforming into Bishop, Marcus, and I's eyes and ears out in the community and growing his knowledge on those certain players in different fields and whatnot. So the timing is right. We got a lot of work to do. We've done a lot of work, and our impact is now.
Yeah.
And we're making some things happen.
Yeah, you are. Definitely.
Yep.
When you think about all the work that we do, from commercial holdings to residential holdings to some of the programming, a lot of the meetings, there's a lot of different people that have their hand in this Eastside Renaissance, mission, a lot of partnerships, funders you're dealing with. And so when we start to take on different individuals as tenants, we've got a property manager, Tim Shannon, who is not here. Right. But at the same time, just trying to make sure that vision is consistent, adding on to the vision, moving it forward. And we've got a lot of things going on ourselves outside of the Eastside Renaissance.
Correct.
It's a labor of love, but the key word is labor.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of work, right? And so when Matt brought Paul to the table and said, listen, I've got just the guy to kind of take this thing and grow it and continue it. I still think back to our first interview, Paul, and it was a lot of fun. There were certain things that I was listening for. Yep. I love the age factor because I think we've talked about on this show multiple times with the next generation, and too often this old men for counsel, young men for war. We keep going with old men for counsel, and the old men can also go to war. Not so. Right. Old men get tired. Right. And we're starting to feel some of that. And so before I pass it over to you, Paul, we were just very impressed by everything you brought to the table. Give me the inside baseball because Matt knew you before I did. Mm-hmm. When this conversation about the Eastside Renaissance bubbled up, how much did you know? How much information did Matt give you? What was the wife's reaction? Give me how all of that played out. I know it was a lengthy process, but give us the genesis of these discussions.
So I've known Matt for 3 years. right around 3 years, and I was running one of the gyms in town that he was going to. I was also running the Lake Erie Recovery Zone that's stationed in that building, and just doing the day-to-day stuff there and meeting Matt. Matt approached me December of last year was when we began the whole process.
I'm going to stop you at December of last year. I forgot to ask about your name, rank, serial number, your sign, all of that good stuff, man. Give us the base information about yourself and then pick that story back up.
So my name's Paul Hamilton. I am 32, so I'm considered the young one of the group.
There's no consider to it, bro.
It's funny.
Exclamation point.
I have a grandchild almost as old as you.
Put it like this: I'm the second youngest at this table, and I'm almost 55.
All right, so I am the young one of the group. And just the trust that you guys have shown me, I truly appreciate it. And this has been a life-changing experience, an opportunity to be able to come in and do this type of work. When I told my wife about the opportunity, she's jumping for joy that I could come out, and my goal was to do something that she's proud of and that my daughters would be proud of.
Amen.
Cool.
And this was the perfect opportunity to do that.
In your hometown?
In my hometown,
yeah,
in an area that I spent a lot of time in. In high school, my friends, the only friend with a car, so of course we were at his house all the time, lived on Parade Street, and
Oh, nice.
his home's no longer there. So bringing this part of town back to life means something to me personally.
Cool.
Excellent. So you were telling the story about when Matt approached you with this.
Yes, December. So I ended up officially coming on end of September. So it was a 9-month process of meeting this person, meeting that person, go to this building to interview, go to that building to interview. And finally, as soon as he approached me with the opportunity, I knew it was something that I was going to make happen. It didn't matter how many buildings I had to go to, how many people I had to meet. I was going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So these are the two questions I have to ask. One, when you first got to know Bishop Brock, I got to lean into the mic when I said that, because if you don't know Bishop personally, you see him scowling on the news,
Exactly.
and reciting scripture and talking about what we need to be doing in community.
Absolutely.
What was it like when you first met Bishop in person and started to get to know him?
Bishop is an amazing man. He has such a presence to him that you don't really capture on TV. You see him all the time speaking, like you said, giving the sermons and what you should be doing. But when you actually meet him, it's such an overwhelming pleasure to be in the presence of Bishop and somebody that does that kind of work. I was truly humbled.
And so Bishop, and then the second question along those same lines, and we told you this when you were interviewing. If you're listening, one of the things that we let Paul know is this is probably going to be one of the most unique executive director positions, because from the very beginning, you will be introduced to the titans of industry in this city, people that other folks are still going through secretaries and third level parties to get to. You are dealing with from the beginning. I mean, even in this conversation before here, you were talking about an interaction with Tim DeCastro yesterday, the CEO of the mighty Erie Insurance.
Yep.
Everyone doesn't get that opportunity. And so you come in drinking from a fire hose. What is it like being around people like Tim DeCastro and all of these other folks from the beginning and having this be your reality?
It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. I thrive under pressure, though. It's a situation that I don't shrink in front of. It's something that I welcome. I like to welcome the conversations and the interactions with these people, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So what drew you to do this? Why do you want to do this? What resonated with you based on their vision?
The opportunity to work for 3 powerful minority men and do something of change is what brought me to this, really.
Yeah.
Do something that I'm proud of.
Good for you. What kind of things going on here that you kind of really groove on, that you want to work on most at this point?
Creating generational knowledge, and like Matt spoke about, creating financial education. It's a community that doesn't know a lot about that. So to be able to help the youth, save money and own a home someday is something that's truly impactful.
Yeah. Basic life skills that it ain't just this community where young people don't know those things. That's necessary all over the place.
Which is a continuation of your work, Matt, from All About Character Inc. In that respect, it is a page out of a book that you've been writing for quite some time.
Yeah, and that's what you just said, that you're asking that question about what sticks out for Paul in this realm, and the youth. And I go back to my piece is important, of course, with the character program and the lack thereof with a high percentage of our youth coming through the K through 8 ranks right now. So we're trying to change that into what we talked about yesterday, Paul, hope. Changing this corridor and throughout the community of hopelessness to hope. And that's our goal and our push, and that's never going to change. But think about what's happening in downtown over the last several years, all the development. Think about what's happening on the west side, lower west side with the 6th Street corridor. Great things are happening over there. And we came together and we said, why not?
Yeah.
Why not us? Why not the east side? I'm a west sider. I grew up in Little Italy. But going back to the kids in this neighborhood walking up and down Parade Street and not seeing any development for decades. And then now they're starting to see movement, businesses coming in, erasing the grocery desert, the restaurant, the banking, housing improvement. So now kids can walk up Parade Street with their head up. Oh, this is going on. A medical center. These things are happening in my neighborhood. And now that hopelessness starts changing to hope that we can have in our community. So that's the ultimate spin on this whole thing. And so we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, because that says something to you as an individual. If you live in an area and you see all of this good stuff going on all around you, and yet it's not happening to you, you start to say, well, what's wrong with me, or what's wrong with my area? That, billions of dollars slowly but surely being poured into the Bayfront, and you see all this investment going on downtown, and you see the investment even for 6th Street. You see the hyper investment along West 6th Street, which is a good thing. But when we started to really look at this area, it was that mindset of, well, what about here? Shout out to staple businesses like Denny's. Denny's has been doing great work in this area.
Absolutely.
Right? And when you look at what Denny's offers with their car wash and their ice cream shop and their laundromat, it's a quality product.
Absolutely.
The McBriar's with the little Caesars over here, Kraus, the big dogs of Parade Street. Right? And then you've got all the work that's been done over here at B's Appliance.
Right.
What I appreciate about B's Appliance, and we want to try to play off of this, you've got all these newfangled appliances nowadays, right? Everybody can't afford the Refrigerate 3000, that makes custom shaped pieces of ice, and that costs $2,000 to service. So even that, having somebody service good and resell good old fashioned appliances for people who can't get the $5,000 refrigerator from Lowe's is needed in society. So lots going on.
Shout out to him. Shout out to Bobby.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I feel like we're coming in and we're on time in terms of we need to do our part. What did this conversation sound like for you on the sideline, Chuck, as it started to bubble up with this East Side Renaissance thing? You're reading about it. You're watching on the news. What are some of the thoughts in your mind as you're watching this play out?
Oh, it's exciting. One of the thoughts I had when you were talking, Matt, is that people need to see it. I had an experience a few years ago with a friend who we all know, who we were at a conference and we were hearing all these promises and politicians, and I said, you don't seem all that excited about this. Black man leader in this town. And he said, yeah, we heard it all before. And what he was saying is, we got to see some stuff before we get excited. You guys are making stuff happen, and so you get to step into this, Paul. I met Aaron, our tech guy, for the first time yesterday. And is this your first episode with us?
Second, technically.
Two, you got two. Anyway, so I said to Aaron, hitch your wagon to these guys. These guys are doing good stuff. You're going to learn a lot from them. And that's that kind of, if I can see it from a distance, and I'm not a business guy, I'm not an entrepreneur, it's exciting to me to see the economic development that's happening here and the sense of pride and community that is being built. And so you get to be in on the ground floor of that at this point, Paul.
Appreciate that.
Paul, you made a point at your meeting yesterday about hope. Unpack that, because I want Chuck to chime in on that and to just give us his opinion and his professional outlook on the term hope with being a pastor and a community advocate and activist. Give us the line that you gave people on hope and why that's so important to our mission.
So yesterday at the event, it was asked of us what's some of our biggest hurdles that we see as an organization, and the answer that I gave was hope. Providing hope can be dangerous because it awards you an opportunity to let people down.
Yeah.
And when you offer hope and actually provide the hope, then you become a pillar in the community that people know when you say you're going to do something, you follow through and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Powerful.
communities like this have heard it all before. And so you're not going to generate hope by telling them about hope. You're going to generate it by doing the kinds of things that you're doing. Right. And despair is a powerful, powerful force to overcome. We've done ministry in Belize and in Ghana, my wife and I, and we have seen how paralyzing despair is, and got to be part of the experience of marginalized communities all over the world, including here. And so you don't need to talk about it. You need to do some stuff, and you're doing some stuff, and you're doing some stuff that makes a difference in people's lives. A bank and dealing with a food desert, boy, those are huge.
Big deal. And I want Matt to unpack that in a minute or two. I was just listening to Jimmy Carter's eulogy on CNN, and his grandson was speaking. Grandson did a phenomenal job.
Good.
Right? And he was funny, he was informative, but he talked about the Jimmy Carter's work overseas in these small African villages and everything, his battle against the guinea worm, right?
Yeah.
And the one line that stuck out to me was he saw in these small villages a segment of himself because he grew up in this small town. And it was this human connection, right? Humanity is humanity. And so this was a small village in Africa. Well, this is a small town. This is like I'm familiar with. And he saw allies and friends, and they started to work together. So when you started talking about despair, that's where my mind went. Despair is despair. South Africa on Parade Street.
Absolutely.
You know, Serbia, despair is despair because it has the same effect on the human spirit, which does take us to Parade Street. And I'm glad that Paul said what he said because it reminded this audience that he spoke to, which I think is a lot of different executive directors.
Yeah, primarily executive directors of different organizations,
Neighborhood
nonprofits,
organizations.
and
And we forget that, this is mission work, right? This is people-centric work.
Yeah.
And so, funding is a part of it. The buildings are a part of it. But the people are the main thing, right? And so, Matt, some of the things that we're working on now give us the backdrop of what's about to come online and what's coming online. And just, you do a lot of the marlin fishing on this, man. Matt straps himself in, and, and what I love about watching Matt is Matt can watch these incremental steps. And he's cheering himself along. Like, all right. So they signed this. Now we got to get this document. And now I got a meeting coming up. And the chess game of it all is fun to watch. And I don't think people understand, man. This is a lot of work. What's coming online?
Yeah, thanks, Marcus. And we have a lot coming online. I'll go to the character program and the expansion of the character piece with Marcus. I don't know how much you talk about your public speaking program.
I don't speak about it much, but go ahead, you can. yeah, say that.
So Marcus created a public speaking program for middle school students, and so right now we're doing the character program in the middle schools. Marcus and I are being the instructors for that, and we're trying to grow that network and getting the understanding to the administration and to the students that this works. And character is a big piece of this. Being able to communicate with others without, when you disagree, you don't have to pull a knife or gun or want to fight because I disagree with your commentary or your thoughts or beliefs. And so those are things that we've really always have been working over the last 6 years together. Growing that is important, of course. We have an NIL piece of this that we're working with a former professional basketball player, Vernon Maxwell. And some of the things that he's doing with his background and some of the issues he dealt with as an NBA player with mental health. And so we're working with their organization in Charlotte and trying to bring those pieces here at Erie, and help the kids, once again, going back to the youth and guiding them in the right direction and right path with the right pieces there. So that NIL piece is important. We also have some menopause, a menopause component we're working on right now for females.
Really?
We're not doing it.
We're not
Level
doing
set
it.
that.
I was going to say.
I don't want the women of America to be listening. Who they think they is?
Yeah.
What you know about that? Ladies, we know nothing about this. We have friends.
We have
that are
friends,
professionals.
friends and
at this.
professionals.
Women friends that are professionals.
Exactly. And they've come to us for our assistance and our consulting, and connecting the dots with those that could help us move the needle, not just locally but across the country.
But these are all the things. Like, we had a lot of stuff going on. This is why we needed Paul.
Absolutely,
right?
100%.
Run us up and down Parade Street. There's a lot of stuff about to happen in Parade Street beginning of this year.
Okay, Parade Street. We're talking about the Erie Bank. Erie Bank is looking to have a grand opening in February. I think later February. Those dates will be confirmed by Monday, which is big. That's a game changer for almost years. We were told, and even though we talked to the main man in Clearfield, he told us it was coming. But those locally, we got pushback because the sign sat there on the corner of 10th and Parade, and it just sat idle. It ain't happening. It's not going to happen. To your point, it's not going to show me.
Yeah.
The show me state, show me something. And so now that it's done, the physical building's in there, and they're working on the interior. Now those conversations are changed. It's like, oh, okay, they're getting it done. Financial.
Yeah.
There is going to be hope for financial education and literacy.
Yeah.
And shout out to Bishop, because he did a lot of marlin fishing.
Bishop did some major
with that
marlin
one.
fishing, and he said it. And in relationship, I go back to relationship capital. Relationship capital is everything. Everything that we do, and I know you know this, and this relationship capital is it. That's the game changer of being able to take your relationships and have someone that believes in your mission and visions, and now put it together and say, okay, that's a relationship. You might not disagree on everything, but that one person or two people can come together and make that happen. So also going back to Parade Street. So
that was the bank.
that was the bank.
I'm going to hold you right there because I want to unpack something very quickly.
Okay.
Before I go to Paul, Chuck, and then we're going to come right back around to you. Chuck, I remember a pastor preaching this one time that the Bible, I forget what he compared it to. Bottom line, look, sirens have made their way into our show. I told you, every show. Every show, I'm telling you.
Yes.
And so the bottom line is this pastor was talking about how much and how often the Bible speaks of money.
Absolutely.
And even when you go back to the book saying, God not allowing the Israelites to lend each other money with interest, right? Unpack that for a minute just so that people can see how many spiritual principles, negatively and positively, are tied up into the exchange of money. And then I want to tie that into something that's going on right now that Paul is overseeing.
Well, I think it ties in with what Matt was talking about in terms of relationships, and everything goes back to where you started. The first thing you said when Marcus asked you to talk about the work was the character stuff, and that's the place where it starts. If you want to build relationships, you got to start with character. People with no character don't have enduring relationships, and so the relationships are foundational, and those are based on character, and so the use of money, it's all tied to the same thing. In the Old Testament, the community of Israel was a people, and so their identity was as these people over against others. We're not operating in that, we shouldn't be operating in that same world today, but so we're taking care of one another, and the money is a resource for all of us to use to take care of one another. So it had a relational aspect to it. I think we would do well to do that again today, to understand, instead of money adhering to a small group of people nationally and internationally, it becomes a resource for us all. And I think that would be a biblical ethic for the use of money.
And even Jubilee, touch on that real quick, because that set people free. Talk about that for us. Give just a little bit of biblical education.
Two things about Jubilee. So in the Old Testament, there was the year of Jubilee, which was the year after the seventh seven of years. So the year after the 49th year. Every 50th year was a year of Jubilee. And in that year, if you had been enslaved, indentured, if you had developed a big debt. All of those things were forgiven, and all
right.
of those folks were released
That's right.
from their indentureship. Jubilee, celebration. Israel never really did it because it is hard to do. But the principle behind it is really important, that we understand that our job is to empower one another, and Jubilee sort of embodies that.
Right. And so all of that to say before I take it to Paul, debt is slavery, right? And financial ignorance is indentured servitude.
Yeah.
And what happens is when you don't have any sort of savvy when it comes to resources, you find yourself a pawn on someone's chessboard, a tool of someone else's wealth plan, right? Enter the program that we have for the Win that teaches young people in and out of school, and we want to expand this to adults as we get the bank open, about the principles and the tenets of finances and credit and things along those lines. Because you'd be surprised at how many times we tell black folks there's a bank coming, yeah, but we got some real problems going on. We don't need a bank. Well, that's one of the problems right there, right there, that you've been so bamboozled that you believe
Right.
the bank and that don't play into my existence. It should. We're not talking about
100%.
just going there to cash a check. We're talking about having a relationship with the bank and using it
Right.
to accomplish your goals,
Exactly.
right? Tell us about this offering that Danielle's doing. We've had Danielle on the show before talking about it a little bit. I know that you've done a great job with shining a light on it and integrating it with the ESR culture. What does that class teach, and give us the value of it, and what have you witnessed from it?
So if you're unfamiliar with the program that it is, it's a financial literacy program that Danielle Randall does through her Future Focused organization. She teaches the kids how to avoid, I call them kids, but how to avoid financial traps, how to build credit, a pathway to home ownership. She even teaches them an etiquette and networking class before the program actually ends, so that when they go out into the world, they know how to present themselves at a professional dinner or a professional setting. Some of the things that I've witnessed in that program is so fun to hear what these kids want to do and these dreams that they have, and how we're setting them up to actually achieve those dreams is a lot of fun to actually watch. We want to expand that when the bank opens to offer it more, to have her do more cohorts. This will be our 5th cohort that we're going into here in February, of typically around 10 to 12, young adults, 18 to 22. If you'd like to follow that, we do post videos of that on our Facebook page weekly. What field trips did they go on? What lesson did they have? Just to kind of build a little bit of knowledge, organically that way. But you can always come into the program and actually take it for yourself.
How do people get into the program?
You can reach out to us at any point on the Facebook. You can reach out to Danielle through Future Focused. That'll get you into it. Right now, we're accepting people, right around 12 people to be in the next cohort. Once the bank opens, we hope to expand that, as Marcus said, to offer it to more people.
Which is why there is a community room, a community space
Yeah.
inside this bank. If you want to pick that up and then go right into the other things that are coming
Yeah,
up.
absolutely. The community room, we're going to have access as ESR. And a lot of people might not know, we're actually are going to be owners of the bank.
Wow.
So we're very fortunate to have Mike Peduzzi and the Erie Bank president, believe in what we're doing in our mission and vision here. Once again, relationship capital, and entrusting us to go and have accessibility to that building after hours to continue this training and education, and then grow it not just for youth but for adults.
Yeah.
And so continue it, grow it, maximize the building as much as we can, and once again, transforming and changing the trajectory and erasing that hopeless stigma from this area. So we're really excited about that, which leads into providing another opportunity for a minority businesswoman in the Taste of Love restaurant. And so we're really excited about 901 Parade Street, where Natasha's looking to have her opening, I think February 1st.
Great.
And so Southern Bistro, cuisine and restaurant there. And that building is taking on a major facelift, a courtesy of ESR. So we believe in a person who we saw could really change the area with growing her business, but also this community, and seeing, hey, we can do more here, and we hope this is just a first.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna, I'm sure we'll talk about it more, but putting out a shout out to her and visiting the store. The food is spectacular. She used to have space at the food hall downtown, and she outgrew the space.
Great.
And so she's looking to expand. She knows she can do a good bit. So we're entrusting her to go and be another platform of something happening now in this community. And so 2025, we're going to get off to a good start. February is going to be a big month for us. And so that's important there. Also, I'll unpack briefly the residential and commercial pieces. We also own a property at 701 703 Parade, which is a 6-unit building. And so that is getting a full renovation, should start within a couple months, where that building is going to get a facelift and a shot in the arm for building our portfolio and changing the mindset once again. Clean, safe, secure housing.
This is the one that we touched on in our conversation with Jen Haggerty. If you're a listener
Right.
and you've heard that show, this is the building that we talked about.
Yeah, we've designated 2 units for her in her program for women transitioning back into the community. So we're excited about that relationship. And that shows also that we're willing to collaborate with others.
Yeah.
And we can't do it alone. And so Jen appreciates that. She knows that. So we have a great relationship with the Women Mercy Center for Women. And then just once again, not just that building, but other residential properties that we've been able to acquire, renovate, and we can talk about testimonials of these families, of what they're living in now and the conditions versus what they were.
Yeah.
It's chilling to see and hear some of the stories from these families. So we're really excited about that, and we're going to continue to grow that. We have a strategic plan that Paul's putting together, a 6-year plan that's going to outline more housing initiatives because there's a housing shortage of good housing in this area. And hopefully we can bring others on from the big boys to the little boys, and to grow this and financially sustain this long term and give more housing options for the community.
Yeah, there's a lot of homes tied into that plan that you're looking into, Paul. In terms of trying to renovate and everything. Talk about that and why.
There's a pretty substantial list of blighted properties. If you just look at the report from even just 2 organizations in the city of how many blighted properties there are in this area, it's alarming. Which just points to the decades of neglect that this area has seen. And
would you say over 100?
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily over 100. I've pinpointed 64-ish in our very specific area, but that's only for our footprint specifically. But the list is easily double that size. So easily 120 to 150 blighted properties just on this side of Parade Street.
Yeah.
What are you planning to do with them?
So we want to get them, we want to remodel them, revitalize that area, and then offer them to people, low-income householding, help people on Section 8 and give them a place to call home.
Great. Yeah, nothing lifts people up like having their own home, having a comfortable place to live, a haven to go to. Those are so big.
That's what it's about.
And we're going to sell off a couple of them to people for that same reason. I know it's been a huge debate lately and you see a lot of this on TikTok and some of these other things, and why buying a home isn't the best investment. Take that money and invest it in this and that. Well, that's for savvy investors. That's easy to say. For the everyday person, who has not developed the either wherewithal or the discipline to invest in this or that, and most people have to go to a professional to even see where they want to invest at. It's so practical to say, let me help you buy this thing, and then life happens. Oh, I need a new such and such. Go buy the new such and such. Oh, the deck has to be rebuilt. And by necessity, you start improving your investment.
Right.
That makes sense. And the rhythm of life, and this is the beauty of it, I believe, the rhythm of life kicks in. People find themselves doing what they always do, and the next thing you know, they look up 10 years from now and they get an appraisal. They're like, the house is worth how much? They haven't even been paying attention.
Absolutely.
Right.
To how much they've been improving the investment.
Yeah.
it's my theory is that same person wouldn't have been pouring that kind of money into the market. So that advice is for people who have the luxury of, where do I put this money?
Exactly. I don't have no money to invest in big stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know what? I've been middle class my whole life, and so that's a lot of people just don't have money to invest.
Right.
But there's the investment in a home is not just financial.
Right.
It is spiritual and emotional. And so to own a home is more than just, whether it's a bad or good investment financially, is only a small part of that equation. It's an investment that has to do with life, place, settledness, and a better future. And you live in a house, your kids grow up in that house, and it's your house. That speaks big to them, instead of they're living in somebody else's house, or living in an apartment, or they're living on the streets. This is part of digging out of despair.
Absolutely.
My 11-year-old asked me a very innocent question about a year ago. Well, Dad, why do people rent apartments? Because he's never been in one.
Mm-hmm.
He was born into the home we live in.
Yeah.
And it is all he knows.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's all his friends know. So he's like, why do people rent apartments? And he was dead serious. And so the reality of these things is very different. For some, it is the complete opposite. Like, well, why would I? And you hear people say, well, why would I want to own it? I get all the headache and you get all the benefit. Can we go half full and not half?
Yeah.
But that has to be taught.
Right.
Yeah. And that's one of the things about my relationship with you guys in this organization. I have seen a part of life in a much more real way. The experiences of people who live in different conditions than I do, who have different obstacles to overcome than I do. And it's been a joy to watch you guys do this, and to start from a place of character.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys didn't just develop it because it's a convenient thing for your business.
Right.
It's who you are.
Right.
And teaching it to young people, because you can't just pick it up at any point. You ain't going to take people in your programs, Paul, and we're gonna have character now. You're 30 years old, but you're teaching it to young people and to their parents. This matters.
Yeah.
That's a great point. That's a great point, Chuck. And I just want to say that it takes a village, and I think what we're trying to accomplish.
Stole that from Hillary Clinton.
I did. Was it Hillary or Bill? Was it Hillary or Bill?
I was Hillary.
It's important work we're doing, and we're just trying to continue it, and we're going to continue it. But seeing my gratification, gratitude is one of my character traits in my program. There's 24 traits. My gratification is seeing and hearing stories and families behind this building here that moved in and what we created there. When we took on that property, going back to the properties, when we bought that property, I mean, you wouldn't want your dog or cat to go in that house. But we saw the potential, and through some support from other foundations, the Erie Community Foundation and others, I'd want to live in that place.
Good for you.
And so now the homes and the testimonials from these families that live there, they can't believe it, that they're living there in good, clean conditions. Yeah. And to your point, it's spiritual. It's like a self of pride, a self of value inside people. And
Absolutely.
so it's amazing it's taken 2025 or 24 or 23 for the community and Erie for the whole, that matter, to realize that residential is where it's at. Yeah. And why is it taking that long for all these things to happen on the east side? And we should be doing more. And so, but it's coming, and we're going to keep fighting that way.
Yeah, and that's infectious stuff. You help a few families, they get grateful for what they've gotten, and now they're spreading the news, and there's a kind of strength in them that wasn't there before. It's big time. It's big stuff.
On a macro level and on a micro level, you've had the corporate takeover of communities.
Everything.
Politics, everything.
Yeah, agreed.
And on a macro level, I'm watching a documentary, and this may seem as unrelated, but I'll bring it back to this, about the Saudis, how they had pumped so many of their wells of water dry in Saudi Arabia. And they started leasing massive swaths of land in the Midwest. and putting in these high dollar pumps, and they were just pumping water and shipping it back over there, pumping water. And the people locally, the farmers were like, I don't have water for my own crops, right? This is happening in the housing market.
Right.
You have these major conglomerates
Yep.
owning X amount of percentage of the housing market.
Yep.
You know, and it makes it difficult for people to push into the market and acquire this one thing that is that's still the premier driver of generational wealth, that being home ownership. So Paul, all of that to say this, before you started doing this, did you realize how many corporations were involved in neighborhood development before you got this job?
No.
Yeah.
No, not
The
even
average
close.
American doesn't.
Yeah. No, it's
And
insane.
what were your thoughts when you figured that out?
To see, even at the meeting yesterday, that the people that were there and to hear how many different organizations have passed these houses around is crazy. There's 3 different, it was owned by this company, and then they shipped it off to this company, and now this organization owns it, and nothing has happened to it. So it's just sat there. And then now we're trying to finally get some of them and actually making the change. And I love that story that Matt talked about the woman who we gave a house to behind our office here. This woman was working, I believe, 2 to 3 jobs to pay for a hotel room for her and her children. And when we heard that story, it resonated with us. So we gave her a home here. This woman now has a home with a white privacy fence. That's what we're doing. That's what we're creating here. I love that story.
It's big time.
And when you look around, so we had opportunity zones that came out under the Trump administration. I want to say that was Tim Scott. Cory Booker had a lot to do with that legislation.
Yeah.
You know, now you got an, I wanted to make sure I got the CRIZ. The CRIZ just got approved here in Erie, Pennsylvania. Politicians have been pushing for that for a long time. From the PA Department of Community and Economic Development, that is the City Revitalization and Improvement Zone. And you start to see these designations flare up all over the place. Somebody just called me earlier today about the CRIZ, and they own a home, and was that have anything to do with me? Can I take advantage of that? And the answer was no. But when you look at this, like opportunity zones, Chris, it is a gateway. It opens the door to a lot of large conglomerates to say, hey, we'll do some work in that neighborhood, which is what usually give rise to gentrification, right? We haven't dealt with that this conversation a whole lot in Parade Street.
Right.
But it's important that people that have roots in a particular area, as monies are coming down the pike from federal dollars from tax dollars that they take from all of us, that people who look like the people that live in that area should be at the table doing development work. And I ask you that question, Paul, because the average person has no idea. Because these laws get passed, it makes it easier for groups to try to do work like this, but for every group, it's not a labor of love like it is for us. It's the chase of the coin, right?
100%.
That's a different kind of pursuit, So that was kind of an aha moment for you. I take it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what do you do about that?
What
How can you fix the problem of greed, Marcus?
What we're doing, it's the restaurant.
Getting them to see and is believing.
Yeah.
And when they see the tangible work, we always talk about this. Talk is cheap. We can talk all day long, and you said it, Chuck. You can talk about it all day long, but people in the community want to show me they've heard that before.
Yeah.
There's been attempts on Parade Street decades ago, several that fell by the wayside. They didn't come, both guns loaded, wherever what it may be. Was that relationship capital? Was it planning? Was it poor planning? What was it? Who knows?
Yeah.
But you got to show the people that you can go in here and make change, and so that corporate takeover isn't so. It's something that's being. Now they got. And what's happening with us right now is we're at the table. We stood our ground. We weren't going to be controlled.
Good for you.
We had a vision. We knew what we were going to do, how we were going to do it. And we're still learning. Don't get us wrong. We're still learning. But you got 3 strong men that started this.
Well, you got Bishop Brock, so you got something out there, man.
We're going with both guns loaded and Uzis and everything else. Excuse my gun references, but
The first email complaint is being written as we speak. Dear WQLN.
I'm a retired trooper, so forgive me. I'm a retired state trooper.
Yeah,
so
he
forgive
comes
me.
back now.
And he should know better.
okay.
QLN, he should know better.
My first job, 20 years as a trooper, so that's what I do. So it's big, and we want them to believe in us and continue to support us, the big boys, and so that's what's coming around now.
I think you hit the nail on the head, man, in terms of why the past efforts didn't work, and this is just a guesstimate.
Yeah.
But I mean, Chuck, your show, why, right?
Yeah.
I'm always asking people about their why, because if the why isn't strong enough, this is unsustainable.
Yeah.
You're gonna burn out sooner or later if this is not in harmony with your why.
Yeah.
Right? And
right.
this is what happens with situations you don't have. It doesn't really jive with your why. It was a means to, and it's too much work. Somebody else can do it. Well, it didn't match your why.
Right.
Yeah. I think that the fact that we're celebrating or memorializing a president who was that guy right now, in contrast to the leadership in much of this country right now, that's one of the reasons why I worry about the future of the country, is that we don't have leadership character across the board out there. It's a whole lot of character lacking. And that means people doing things for themselves and not for the community, not for the good of the whole. This is a little microcosm that can be a place. And we try to do this with our church and some of the work that we do in Ghana and the work that we were doing in Central America, to create a place that can be a model for how you do it. And you do it starting with compassion and relationships and character. And nothing has to do with physical buildings at the start.
That's right.
And you guys already have done that. So keep it up. Come on, let's keep moving.
Yeah, absolutely. And people are dealing with us because of those things, because of our resumes.
That's
We always talk about
exactly
that.
right.
They're dealing with us because of who we were and what we've done before the Eastside Renaissance ever came along. Marcus and I, we talk about that all the time. It's what you did before. If I came off of the street and no one knew me, we're going to have an issue. We're going to have an issue with you receiving these buildings, receiving funding, and your plan of attack. It's a different thing.
And that, to me, that ties us all in, and it gives me an opportunity to bring it right back to Paul with closing remarks. Everything you're saying comes back to that why, right?
Yep.
I pursued Matt in terms of us coming together to do something, because here I was a person that was being driven by my why and everything I put my hand to, and I was watching Matt. I know Matt since high school, do it from a distance. Like, look, Matt's a retired trooper. He's got things to do. He's done okay. He can just golf and travel. And yet I'm watching him be driven by his why, and I would hear him talk about his program. Like, this dude is fully invested. Well, that's how I viewed myself. So let's get together. And then we go to Vision. We go to Bishop, who was also being driven by his why, right?
Yep.
And that does lend itself to the trust factor, whether it's funders or whomever else, because they're saying, listen, you know why these guys are in it.
Right.
So it's not a money grab.
No.
This is not, well, we got bored, so we just, no, we want to do something that's generational.
Right.
Yeah.
When I'm gone, we're hoping at this thing. And so you started out, Paul, giving us a glimpse of your why. You want your daughter to be proud. You want to do something that's proud. Unpack your why a little bit more. Why does that fill your bucket? And what does this work do for you internally as we close?
So the work that I was doing before was still able to help people. It was, I still had an impact on people's health and that, but it wasn't something that when I went to sleep at night, I was like, it was a good day today. I did something today that changed someone's life. When Matt gave me this opportunity, it was immediately something that I know if, say in 5 years, my daughter has a career day and dad shows up, she's proud that he's there.
Nice.
And then that's my big why, is being able to create something that in 15, 20, 25 years, when my daughter is grown, she's still carrying that torch.
Yeah.
And she's still proud to say that, Paul Hamilton was my dad.
And I think that one of the cool things about the work that you guys are doing is that you're not just, so the work that you were doing before, Paul, you might make a difference in this person's life or that person's life, but you're not just impacting individuals' lives, you're impacting a system. And we've come to recognize in the last few years how biased our systems are, and how our systems work against certain people. And so to address things by becoming an alternate system, so to speak, is I think a super way to do it.
Yeah.
There's all this talk in the church about when I was in seminary, so this is a long time ago, but when I was in seminary, they talk about, you don't need to have a church building and have people come there and preach great stuff and get a filled up congregation. You have to live a kind of life as a people that makes other people look and say, that's the way life should be. I want to live that kind of life. I got to find out what's going on there. And that's what you guys are doing with ESR.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. Well, listen, the men of ESR, Chuck Cammarata, and Aaron Cronin for being on the system. Our new intern, we're happy to have him on board, trying to keep him a little bit longer. With your support, we can. We'll unpack that another day. That's it for our show today. I want to thank you all for tuning in. And you can tune in next time for more discussion and analysis with local and national guests about local and national issues. I want you to remember that Next 2.0 streams on Fridays on all major podcast platforms and on the fourth Sunday of the month at 4 p.m. on WQLN PBS NPR, which is 91.3 FM. If you want to call and leave a message, comment, or suggestion for the show, you can call 814-240-8816. We look forward to hearing from you. Marcus Atkinson, come and join us again so that you can hear about what's next for our communities and our democracy. Peace.